today's project is this modern and funky Christmas card. You can see there's a vibrant burst of green raging across the page with faint Christmas text in the background in an orange. And then we've got this lovely white Christmas tree that's been lifted from the surface and a simple "We wish you a Merry Christmas" sentiment backed in black, and the card base is backed in black as well. A nice modern funky Christmas card. If you want to see how it was made, continue watching. Okay, so let's get started. I've got here a piece of 14cm watercolour paper. For those that are interested, this is the paper I use. It's a pad I buy from Cass Art in London. You can get it online, cassart.co.uk. Watercolour paper smooth. It's 300 GSM, £140, and it's a really nice paper with quite a sort of a dense woven texture, which I find really nice for card making. It also holds a lot of water, which is really great. So that's what I'm using today. I've got here a couple of Brushos that I've made into spray bottles just by watering it down. There's a video on my channel that shows you how to do that if you're interested. I've got a Christmas stencil here, which is by Julie Hickley, I think it is. Yeah, Julie Hickley. I don't know if that's still available, but it's just loads of Christmas sentiment words. So that's the idea. And what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to use a glass mat for this because I'm going to be spraying and making a bit of a mess. Now, the idea of this card is I'm going to use this Christmas tree die in the corner with a simple sentiment stamp underneath. And what I want is kind of like an explosion of colour, like a burst of green underneath. And then I'm literally just going to use a piece of white scrap paper, cut this die out, put that on top so that you've got the really nice contrast of the white against the green with a relatively clean and simple background. That's the theory anyway. I haven't really planned this one out too much. I'm just going to actually do it and see what it looks like. So the only thing with these sprays, they're great, but they're a little bit hard to control. So you definitely need some kitchen towel. Which kitchen towel we have? Cool. Let's get started then. I haven't used these for a while, but they are good. And you can see you sort of get instant effect with them, but they're just a little bit wild. That's the only thing. So you have to be a little bit careful. So I'm going to spray, but each time I'm just going to sort of take it off a little bit. I kind of know what I want to achieve, but I don't want it to go crazy. So that's fine, but now there's a hell of a lot of wet sitting on there. That's the only thing. If I dry that, I'm going to push it everywhere, which I don't want to do. So I'm going to keep blotting it with my kitchen towel just to remove some of that excess liquid. But I'm trying to keep the green down in that bottom corner because this card is all about the contrast of the white on the green. So that's given us a bit of a base of green. I've got a second green here, which is moss green, which is really strange because it actually looks brown in the bottom. But let's just give that a spray. You see that's a sort of a dirtier green. I'm going to go back in as well with the lime, I think. Okay, and I'm actually going to dry it. So I've got my heat gun here. Apologies for the noise. I'm just going to dry it on low. I'm going to blot some of that off first. But see, I've got a base layer of colour, and what I need to do is I need to work that base layer of colour up, because at the moment it's not very interesting. It's quite good. I do often plan out my cards, but on this one I just had the idea. It's about contrast of the white with the green. See, at the moment what we've got is just quite a bland blob of green, which isn't great. So what I might do is add something else into the mix here. Let's get that to a sort of a dry state. Okay, so what I'm thinking is Distress Oxide sprays. So I've got here, these are by Ranger, Tim Holtz, Distress Oxide Spray. This is mowed lawn. What I'm thinking is I might actually just use this. Just to give that a shake, so I've not used these for a while. And just, there you go. That's giving me more of the burst of colour that I'm looking for. Let me just dry that again. If anything, I do want to get a kind of a bit of a run effect. You can see the intensity of colour from the Distress Oxide is way more than the Brushos. The Brushos are quite a sort of a gentle colour because they're diluted. This is starting to look kind of how I was imagining it. Right, what we've now got as well, which is interesting, is a whole load of ink on here. What I might do is just also smoosh some of that. Just to get a few different, there you go. That's kind of the look I was looking for. Yeah, kind of an explosion that reaches out from that side. Perfect. That's the look. Okay, let me just clean that up. What we might do as well is just add a bit of water, and I've got here my little mini pulverizer. Which is pretty much nearly empty. And then I've actually got the Brushos here themselves. So what I might do is just actually sprinkle a little bit of Brushos directly on the top. Right, it doesn't look much coming out of there, but then it always surprises you when you activate it with water. And I just stab myself with my pin, which is great. Okay, what we need is a little bit of water. Hang on a sec. Let me just fill this up. I happen to have a glass of water here next to me. Okay, now let's just give that another spray. See, look how different that is now. Because the Brushos are made out of multiple colours, you start to get a bit of grittiness, a bit of earth. That's what we want. What I'm getting here is a big run though, so I'm just going to blow that. But this is to see how nice this is, all this detail around the edge. Just going to give that a gentle dry. This is the thing, you can always add, it's really difficult to take away. So when you're doing something like this, it's a good idea to build up those colours in layers, because you can always add, but you cannot take away. Once you've gone too far, you've gone too far. So I always tend to lay down some base colour and then just have a play with sort of adding more and more and more, just to see. Now any of these big blobs, you can just take the excess away, because if you keep going with the heat gun, it will run. It's not a bad idea just to take off the really excessive bits. And once that's looking relatively okay with the blobs, you can blast it. which is what I'm going to do. Okay, I just need to clean that up. Dry the back, just to make sure you get a uniform dryness. And because this paper is decent quality paper, you can see it's not curling up too badly at all. It's quite good. It's relatively flat, which means I can then work on it some more. Now we've got quite a bold panel of colour there, but I'm not too concerned about that because that is pretty much where the tree's going to sit. So the tree will pretty much cover that up, and then I've got a fairly decent solid background for the thing underneath, the sentiment. So I'm just going to give that a little stretch and then just put that on one side for a minute to cool. Okay, so that's that element done. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to run the dye through my die cutter. Now I've got a Gemini. You can see these plates are well loved, but these plates are about, I want to say 3 years old. And I know there's a lot of moaning in groups around the Gemini saying, oh, it really curls your plates up, they're terrible, you have to buy new ones. No, what you have to do is iron them with a wet towel. Once you've done that, there's no need to then flip them, reverse them, turn them, everything else. They stay pretty flat. You can see my plates are pretty flat, and I've been using these for about 3 years. So my sandwich also, I have the thick plate, I have the rubber mat, and I have the opaque plate, the sort of greyish one. And I tend to use my edges for cutting. So I would typically put something towards the edge. I find that just works best in my machine. So take your sandwich plates, your die cutting machine. Obviously I can't show you that, sorry, because it's to one side. But you can hear it. There we go. Okay, that actually did move. I didn't tape it down. It doesn't matter though, because we only want the tree. We don't want the little star. So that's absolutely fine. My scrap of paper back. Okay, let's have a look at this. So this is quite a cute die. I bought it in a set of 3 different sort of modern style Christmas trees, which is quite cute, and I've used it quite a lot on, because it's got quite a lot of detail on it. You don't need loads extra stuff with it. So if you poke out all the little bits, I mean, you could, you know, change these into different colours and stick them all back in and everything else, but that's a bit fussy. I'm actually just going to use it for its simplicity. So I've got my little tree, which is cute. Just got a rough edge there, which I'm just tidying up. And I'm literally going to use that as it is. So that will sit here. And what I'm thinking to do is put a sentiment underneath. I've got this quite cute sentiment set. This is a Stampers Anonymous Tiny Text Christmas, which I've used in other card making before. And it's all just kind of Dymo tape type messages, which are really nice. I've used this so many times, it's unbelievable. But what I do basically is just pull one of these off and just use it on a card, basically. We'll probably just go with "We wish you a Merry Christmas." Just a pretty straightforward one. These are red rubber stamps, but I typically stamp using my platform, but actually today I'm probably just going to wing it. And these, they're not super sticky, but they do tend to just work, which is quite good, without any kind of adhesive or anything. So I've got some black VersaFine ink here, good old Onyx Black, and I'm just going to ink that up. and stamp it on this piece of scrap. Give it a minute for the ink to just soak in. There we go. We wish you a Merry Christmas. I'm going to heat emboss that with some clear Wow emboss powder. Tap off the excess. Just because I like a glossy, solid finish. Just going to heat that with my heat gun. It's done. Let me just clean this up. So I keep my cleaning cloth in a little tub and I just clean as I go, basically. This cloth is not actually that wet. I might need to do this afterwards, but no, that's okay. It needs a good wash actually in the washing machine. So I can pop that one back. Okay. And I'm going to cut this one out, just using a scalpel and a metal ruler. So I'm just eyeballing that. And then I'm going to cut the top as well, just again eyeballing that. Apologies if you can see my head as I'm leaning in. So I'm just going to give that a cut as well. I want quite a narrow, thin strip. I'm going to wing it at the edges just with my long scissors. But I just want a very simple there we go. And then I'm going to back that in black, and I have a scrap here next to me. I keep my scraps next to me in a relatively tidy heap because I just think it's a lot easier. Now, what I would typically do, if this is going to sit in black on this background, which is green, I would typically give this a green tinge around the edge, just to tie it all together. So I take my little pot of sponges that have been used on different coloured inks. There is a green, and you can pretty much guarantee there'll be enough left on that sponge to just give that a pale green tinge around the edge. Don't need to be opening an ink pad. Don't need to be using anything that's not already been used. Just reusing a little bit of ink that's been left. There you go, and you can see that, hopefully. Just enough there to just give it a tiny little green edge. Just starts to bring things together. Trying to tie all of our card together as we make it. Right, I've just got some basic PVA glue here in my little dispensing bottle. Just putting a little bit on there, don't need much. And then just going to use my tweezers just to place that in a corner of this black card or black paper. I want a very narrow border around it. Okay, that's fine. And then I'm just going to cut again by eye. There we go. We have our sentiment ready to go. Okay, so sit that on the side. Now, I've got this stamp set. Oh no, sorry, stencil. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stencil over this with a bit of Christmas in the background. I think colour-wise, could go for maybe vintage photo. I'm thinking maybe just a bit of brown, a very faint brown, or even an orange. I've actually gone Distress Ink Dried Marigold. I think that could be quite interesting. So we're not going to do loads because we know where this is going to go. This is going to go about there. The sentiment's going to go underneath. We just want something sort of in this main body. So I'm just going to hold this in place. I'm not sure how juicy this is actually. I'm going to test this on a piece of scrap paper. Oh yeah, we're getting quite a lot. Okay, so make sure it's relatively straight. Use just one of the texts to line that up. And we're just going to do that just to give a bit of a hint of the text in the background. Not seeing a lot through there, so I think we're probably going to need a bit more than that. That is very subtle, it has to be said. You can just about see it. I think what I might do actually, slight change of tact. Having used the Distress Ink in Dried Marigold, I might actually change and use Spiced Marmalade in the Distress Oxide, just because it's a bit of a bolder colour. Just to see if that gives a bit more impact. Yeah, that's what we want. Dab, 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 dab. There we go. A hint of something, even if you're not too sure exactly what it is. Perfect. Gives us a little bit more texture, a little bit more depth. I'm going to dry that. And you find that when you're applying different inks on different surfaces, sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. You just have to play. Okay, let me just clean up my stencil. Now you have to be a bit careful on this one because it's quite detailed with all the letters, and if you rub too hard you can actually fold them back. You can see there one of the little letters is a little bit damaged. I'm not sure if I can fix that actually. There you go. So just give that a clean, pop that back in its packet. Again, really useful stencil that I have used many times. Okay. Now, so we're now at the stage really where we need to start to layer this card together. So this is going to go there, and this is going to go there. What I want to do, I'd quite like to pop that up, but this is quite narrow, so I'm going to have to think about how I'm going to do that. What I will probably do is take my foam pads and actually cut some into quite thin strips, and then just peel them off. and stick them carefully on the back. They need to be pretty narrow. Okay, 3 along one side. What we can do with these, just to make sure they're not visible, is we can give them a bit of shaping as we actually lay them down. Right, so what I'm talking about is get them on and then peel your backing papers off. So that they're all exposed with their sticky. I think we're there. And then just give them a bit of a squish. So I'm pulling them in on themselves. And that way, where it's hanging over the edge, like this one, you can just sort of pull it up a little bit. And that'll tidy it up. It thins it. You can do it kind of from both sides. And that just stops you seeing it. And the card is actually finished. The other thing you can do is always give it a poke as well, once you've got it on the page. Okay, there we go. So, beware the sticky on the end of your tweezers. Okay, right, so let's get this card now in the layout that we want. So, thinking Christmas tree around there. So put your tree down. And as I said to you, where you can see the sticky pads, just give them a poke. Because they stick to themselves, so you can just poke them in on themselves like that, and just hide it away. And little bits will come off as you do it, but there's enough on there for it to do its job basically, which is lift it up from the surface of the card. And you can do the same on the inside as well. Give it a poke, drag it along a bit. I doubt very much I'm the first person to have ever done this. But there you go, just a quick way of tidying that stuff up. There we go. So there we have our Christmas tree, sitting proud of the surface. You can see it's got a little bit of depth. Now we need to mount our sentiment. As this is lifted, I'm not going to lift the sentiment, I'm just going to put the sentiment down. So just a bit of glue. Gives me a little bit of wiggle room, and lets me get that in the right place. So lay that down, just have a look at that, make sure it's level. I think so. Yep, that looks nice. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my orange again. This, and obviously there's still some left on the sponge. I'm just going to give a gentle orange around the edges. If you've watched my other videos, you'll know I do like to edge and tie everything together with colour. Just gives a little bit more interest. And again, we're using ink that's already there. Okay, that's looking quite nice. I think we'll back it in black. So I've got a piece of black here from another project that's left over. We've got enough there. Yeah, I can just avoid that cut there, I think. Okay, so I'm going to use double-sided tape on the back. I do tend to always layer up my cards so they have a coloured layer underneath or a black layer underneath. It does just finish them off, makes them look professional, and adds weight to the card as well. So when you've got the card in your hand, it feels like a decent card. I'll strip across in the middle, and then I'm just going to take my tweezers, pull all these tapes off. I'm just going to sit that. Actually, what am I doing? I should use this side because then I don't have to worry about the hole. Okay, so I'm going to give it quite a thin border because it echoes the border of the sentiment. I don't want a thick border. Again, scalpel. And a ruler. Just trim that off so that looks square. Okay. And then I'm going to take a white 6-inch card blank. So I'm just going to fold and score with my bone folder. Checking that on the other side. There we go, that's going to look quite nice. More tape. As you can imagine, I do get through quite a lot of double-sided tape, but this is just a really cheap basic one from Amazon. Don't spend money on double-sided tape. They all do much the same job in my experience. Right, bunny ears trick this time, peeling back the edges, so it just gives me a bit of wiggle room. Okay, make sure the card is the right way up. And make sure the card is clean. I haven't got anything I need to cover up. Nope. So just going to lay that down loosely on the surface so that I can wiggle it. Give it a little bit of maneuverability and get it roughly level, and then go for it. I always use my bone folder just to press it down, and also just to make sure that that edge is firmly stuck. And then I'm just going to run along with my tweezers actually, because I've got some rough edges there on the black, although it doesn't look bad actually. There we go. That looks quite nice. You could add more to it. You could add some gems randomly around. You could add a bit of gold, you could colour some of these in if you wanted to, but actually I quite like it like that. I think it looks quite nice. You can just see the text in the background. Obviously you've got that quite interesting effect, and then you've got that sharp contrast of the white against the green as it gets darker into this corner. So I'm quite happy with that. If you enjoyed this video, please like and maybe subscribe to my channel if you want to see other projects. And also my cards are on Etsy, Instagram and TikTok under the same Crafts by John UK. So if you want to see more, please go and have an explore, and I'll catch you next time.